Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. Vice President Kamala Harris delivered her closing message last night at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. A brief, scripted, of course it was. Whose words were these? Whose thoughts were these? Whose promises were these? Speech where she urged all Americans to, quote, stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. Oh, by the way, Trump is Hitler. It's like the same as Joe Biden after he was inaugurated. I will be a unifier. I am looking for unity. Trump is Hitler. And no sooner had she ended her remarks than her current boss, the sitting president of the United States, got on a campaign Zoom call and called half of America garbage. This is unbelievable. We had some warm-up act to the warm-up acts at the Trump MSG rally the other day, make off-color jokes. And as I said, the whole thing was a little too bro-y for me. Right? It wasn't just him and the bro-iness of it. But this has dominated the news cycle for 2.5 days. The left needed the vapors after this comedian's joke about Puerto Rico, which, by the way, does have a massive trash problem. So it wasn't completely off, this joke. Sorry, it wasn't. And what happens? Kamala Harris goes out there, and just as they're gearing up to place the crown on her head for the new Michelle Obama, Joe Biden comes out and takes a massive dump all over it. Sorry, that's what happened. It's really unbelievable. Joe Biden proved once again why the Harris campaign is begging him to stay hidden in the basement because he says all the quiet parts out loud. Don't think for 1 second she feels differently than he does. Not for 1 second. It's just like she said on The View. She wouldn't have done anything differently. There's no distance or daylight between the two of them. And you can bet the same is true on this comment. I guarantee you this is what she thinks of Trump and his supporters, that they're garbage too. And how do I know? Because her running mate is out there calling them Nazis. And she says that's the last decision she made on instinct, on her gut, to pick him. It's incredible. And this is how we're going to spend the next 6 days until Election Day, talking about, no, not that story. Obviously not. The media's in control. We're going to talk about how Republicans are pouncing on it. They're pouncing. The damn pouncers are pouncing again on the eminently unpounceable. We don't understand it. It's incredible. What a story to kick it off with Charlie Kirk. He's founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and host of The Charlie Kirk Show. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you can impact your family, friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs as of June 2024, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Charlie, welcome back. Unbelievable what happened last night. I'm going to get you to react, but let me just play Joe Biden's comments and what he said right after she spoke.
Donald Trump has no character. He doesn't give a damn about the Latino community. He's failed businessman. He only cares about the billionaire friends he has and accumulating wealth for those at the top. He says immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. Give me a break. He wants to do away with the birthright citizenship. Who the hell has said that in the last 100 years? And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters, his this demonization of Latinos is unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done.
Charlie Kirk, thoughts?
Well, first of all, isn't it great to be here, Megyn? Thank you. Isn't it fitting that the man that they hid from us for 3 years for obviously having mental decline is just redeployed a week out from the election during Kamala's speech, by the way, and completely undermined? I could not tell you really anything she said other than Trump bad, unify the country, all the headlines trending on Twitter, 1.2 million tweets, just everybody talking about the fact the current president of the United States calls half the country, myself included, garbage. So let's break this down. And I mean this sincerely. Has there ever been an instance in American history where a sitting president openly calls half the country that he is tasked to govern trash, garbage, worthy of discarding? Has that ever happened in American history? Ever? And if somebody has an example, I would love to see that example. I don't even think during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln called the Confederacy that. I mean, I do not even think during the American Civil War, Abraham Lincoln called the people of the Confederacy garbage. In fact, I think Abraham Lincoln said, these are still our fellow citizens and brother against brother, and it's a tragedy we're fighting them. And so we've never seen this language ever in American history. I'd love a historian to dig that up if it's happened before. It's number one. Number two, which is that this is what they deserve. They deserve that this man that they force-fed us as president of the United States 4 years ago in that ridiculous election of 2020 when he was in the basement and there was mail-in ballots everywhere that were not being checked and there was $400 million from Mark Zuckerberg. They deserve the guy that they forced on the American people to all of a sudden come back a week out from the election. And there's so many other points to kind of go through here, but this is not a gaffe. This is a stated policy position. They do think that we're garbage. Not just from their rhetoric, but from how they treat us. Look at how they treated the hurricane victims. I'm in North Carolina right now. How they treated the hurricane victims in North Carolina versus foreigners. You treat garbage that way. Look at how that they are trying to import another 10 million people and destroy the purchasing power of our dollar. You treat garbage that way. And Joe Biden did not say something by mistake. He was caught saying something that he meant that he wished he would not have said. And that's a very important distinction. And so this now takes all the headlines in a way that only you could explain that either God or luck or something. I think it happens to be God as on Trump's side because the news cycle was just annoying after MSG, Megyn. We were talking about this comedian's joke and it was all about garbage. And now it's completely in the opposite direction. Joe Biden took what was an annoying 48 hours news cycle after Trump had basically unbroken momentum from McDonald's and Rogan and all of his great campaigning to kind of, okay, we got to now cover for some comedian. And that is another point I want to make just very quickly. The media freaked out about a comedian not running for office, saying an off-color joke. I didn't like the joke. You didn't like the joke. I thought it was the wrong time or place or manner for that. This guy's a sitting president of the United States and is running the country, allegedly, and is the mentor and the boss of the person running for the job. And the media, their coverage was like, well, Joe Biden appears to attack Donald Trump supporters as garbage, or right-wingers get very upset about Joe Biden's comments about them as garbage. So this is now the closing argument. This is worse than deplorables, and I think this is going to do nothing but motivate people that might not have voted to go out and vote because the current administration hates you. They think you're worthy of discarding. They believe you're garbage.
Here's what's so amazing about it. It's a direct parallel. They just spent 2 days trying to tell us it is deeply offensive and wrong and an outrage and a votable issue to have somebody on one person's side call a group garbage. And the case they were making was about a comedian who was at MSG hours before Trump took the seat.
No real attachment. Yes,
but
exactly. Yes.
So they spent 2 days telling us if somebody affiliated with the other side calls a group of people garbage, that could be a single issue for you when you go into that ballot box. You must vote against that person. That's absolutely deeply offensive, racist, terrible, beyond the pale. And then what happens? Not some comedian who's warming up 4 hours before Kamala Harris gets out there. The sitting president of the United States, who's been her partner in all policy, from whom she sees no differences for the past 4 years, as she said repeatedly now over the past couple of weeks, gets out there and says, Trump supporters are the only garbage I see. And the media has absolutely no room to run. There's no way of squaring those two positions. They must say this is deeply wrong and you cannot support a ticket that would have that kind of mentality about the American people. And yet they are in the Cirque du Soleil contortions to try to get away from it. We've got to talk about the apostrophe, right?
Oh, no, I was going to go there. No, the apostrophe is one of the greatest wrinkles of this whole story, Megyn. No, but please continue.
Amazing.
It is.
So
really
you get John, as near as I can tell, Jonathan Lemire is the first person to get the apostrophe. He is a complete hack, partisan, pathetic excuse for a quote journalist. He works for Politico, and he also is part of the MSNBC morning show, the show that precedes Morning Joe, but now he's being elevated to Morning Joe because his kind of hackery will get you a full-time role on that show. And he reaches out to his sources at the White House about this comment that we all watched Joe Biden make. He made it around 6 p.m, but it didn't start circulating till later. And he gets the White House transcript, the official transcript of Biden's remarks calling Trump supporters garbage. And he goes with it. He says, this White House version of the transcript proves that the Biden quote is, quote, being taken out of context. And the transcript reads, the only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters, but it adds an apostrophe between the R and the S of supporters as if it's possessive. Like his supporter issued garbage like out of his mouth, and that's all I see. That is clearly not what Joe Biden said. And if you hear the cadence of the way he delivered it, that makes it clear. We should go back and listen to it again. Let's listen to it one more time.
Donald Trump has no character. He doesn't give a damn about the Latino community. He's failed businessman. He only cares about the billionaire friends he has and accumulating wealth for those at the top. He says immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. Give me a break. He wants to do away with the birthright citizenship. Who the hell has said that in the last 100 years? And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done.
And then just putting a period at the end of that, Charlie. So Lemire sells his soul and doesn't even pretend to be a real journalist. And then ultimately, because this blew up online, Biden puts out a statement that reads as follows. It's an X post. Of course, Jonathan Lemire shared it from Biden. Earlier today, I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump's supporter at MSG as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. Okay, so he's trying to say, I was referring to that guy's hateful rhetoric. That's what I was calling garbage. Then he says, his demonization of Latinos is unconscionable. That's all I meant to say, which is different than that's all I said. In here is an implicit admission that he said exactly what we heard him say. And what's remarkable today is, Charlie, the AP, many other like normal news sources or, left-leaning, Axios, CNN are not going along with Lemire's and Politico's spin. They're actually admitting they heard what we heard.
Yeah, I mean, we're half there. I have some of these headlines. Again, these people, they can't bring themselves to ever reporting the truth. I mean, let me just read some of these headlines. White House and Trump campaign clash over whether Biden called Trump supporters garbage. Okay, I mean, we're almost there, right? I mean, is that really the essence of the story of the Washington Post? Okay, CBS News, which is by like their entire team, Ed O'Keefe, Waija Jian, Olivia Rinaldi. Supporters apostrophe. Biden comments about Trump garbage rally anger the GOP. Do you see, this is what they do, if I have to say. If there's ever an injustice, they say right-wingers pounce, conservatives upset, as if we're like being some sort of unreasonable cohort. And then if we do something against them, or if there's some comedian, they say outrageous, racist, vile rhetoric spewed. Of course, I mean, that is the playbook. AP, Biden suggests Trump supporters are garbage after comics insults of Puerto Rico. So they just have to add that in there, right? They have to just
of course.
make sure that's in, that's in the headline. So look, the possessive thing is amazing. I would have loved to have been in the White House comms room and the Kamala Harris campaign where they were trying to figure out how to spin this one. So they probably watched the tape and they're like, oh my gosh, we should have kept him in the basement, which is just a whole nother amazing wrinkle, right? I mean, is there some sort of quiet pro-Trump part of this? Again, I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but this guy was not doing as many interviews. He was not doing this many interviews 4 years ago. He was a spring chicken 4 years ago. And he's completely not needed right now. And he's doing some Zoom call for Latinos concurrently while there is this like major closing argument just feet away from the White House at the Ellipse. And someone decides to go put you on some Vodo Latino Zoom call where you're going to give off-the-cuff remarks about something that is helping your narrative. It's a little bit too suspicious for me. And so the other part is that the White House comms room with the Kamala Harris, they're like, okay, Joe said that, we can't say that he was, okay, how about if we add an apostrophe? Because MAGA is known to litter. That MAGA is really known to make the streets dirty. That it's their garbage. That if you go into MAGA neighborhoods, they're filthy. I mean, it's so repulsive. And here's what
Charlie,
it's doing now.
On that front, somebody on Twitter put out like all the Harris Biden brain trust sitting around thinking, what's the solution? What's the solution? And then somebody, if you can see, somebody does this. It's just a picture of an apostrophe. By George, exactly. I've got it.
and it only makes the story bigger. And it only amplifies it more. And again, this is a turnout election now. We're seeing it in the numbers. This is not a persuasion election. Kamala's playing a persuasion election, which is highly risky. In the last week of the election, it's incredibly risky to antagonize and call the opposition names, fascists, Nazis, racist, garbage, all these things, because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction in politics, especially when you talk about turnout, and it can bring a lot of people more out to the polls that otherwise wouldn't have. So it's incredibly high risk. And so by doing this now, again, it started with an unfavorable, day and a half, kind of an annoying, I don't want to say unfavorable, it was annoying, okay, MSG, and then we have to talk about some comedian's thing who's not running for office, who's just happened to be on stage, okay. And now it's very real. This went from annoying to real to like, wow, the president thinks that half the country is garbage. And again, we have a tradition in this country, and this is what's so important, is Joe Biden, how many times did he have to say, well, I'm here to unify the country, and I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. It is all rubbish. We know this. It's now through rhetoric and action. They hate you. They want to discard you. And the most important point on this is that this dehumanizing language is what led to the worst atrocities of the 20th century. I'm not going to compare everything to Nazism. That's what the left does. But it is a fact. When you use this language that wide swaths of people are garbage, then you are in your mind, you're able to justify raiding their homes, taking their businesses away, spying on them, following them into Latin Mass, and doing some of the most grotesque things imaginable because they believe that we are worthy of being discarded, eliminated, or just disappeared.
Well, that's the thing, is like this really is a pattern for these Democrats. Yes. Kamala Harris's hands are dirty too. She may want to disassociate herself from Biden, as her supporters now, the guys from the Pod Save America, keep saying, oh, Biden's not running for president. He's not on the ticket. But her hands are just as dirty.
Tony Ratcliffe.
You've got Obama calling Republicans bitter clingers. You've got Joe Biden out with they're a bunch of garbage. You got Kamala Harris calling them fascists and Nazis. And you got Tim Walz, too, out there saying that was a Nazi rally that we watched at MSG. It was a bunch of Nazis. It wasn't, he got right up to it. I'll play you the double Tim Walz comments. Here are the original remarks.
Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing there.
Direct parallel to the Nazi rally. And then he gets asked about it by a local reporter yesterday. Watch.
You said over the weekend, referring to it, there's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden.
Well, look,
you were comparing that rally to a Nazi rally?
Look, I'm comparing it to the hate that came out of this, and I think they confirmed that.
You stand by that comparison, though, to a Nazi rally?
Look, the rally, you saw it for yourself. I'll let the American public make the decision of what they saw.
What about you, though?
So I know what I saw, and I'll just leave it at that.
Doesn't disavow.
I
So
like
you got
that
bitter
journalist. Good
clingers,
for
you
him.
got deplorables. How did I forget Hillary? You got bitter clingers from Obama, you got deplorables from Hillary, you got fascists from Kamala, you got Nazis from Walz, and now you got garbage from Joe Biden. That is what the Democrats think of the right half of this country.
Yeah, and again, I'm not one to get overly excited with this because I think it's really dangerous, but this is how you get towards justifying eliminating people. And again, I hope we're not close to that in America. I really don't. But they're not trying to offer an olive branch and try to heal the country. They're basically saying that Charlie Kirk and people like me are worthy of gulags and worthy of concentration camps. And if I am wrong, somebody prove me wrong on this. Because Tim Walz had multiple opportunities there. And for him to irresponsibly and recklessly, and that journalist did a great job following up, kind of play cutesy with it. So at the MSG rally, what are they saying? Okay, that at a different location, that a bunch of Nazis held something in the 1930s. I guess when Bill Clinton accepted a nomination for the Democrat National Party in 1992 in Madison Square Garden, was that a Nazi rally? Because that's really a stupid argument. And by the way, half of that arena were like Orthodox Jews with Israeli flags. But no, it gets down. Here's the part of it is that this is all they have left. And you notice how they started with heavy emphasis on abortion. They're not doing that as much right now. Heavy emphasis on all of Trump's felony convictions. You don't hear that much right now. They have now gone to their final thing, which is, honestly, just call them a bunch of fascists and Nazis, and hopefully that will motivate our base. This is so poisonous to the political discourse. I don't know how we heal this, Megyn, other than these people need to be permanently displaced from power. They need to become permanently in the minority of this country and punished. And I mean punished electorally. Like, they need to go in timeout for the next 2 decades and learn a very harsh lesson that this country, the people that they call Nazis and clingers and fascists and garbage, are the people that make this country work. They protect this country. They clean this country. They love this country. They're the backbone of this country. And their utter contempt for the American people. I mean, if there is any justice left in this world, it will be met with a widespread repudiation this coming Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. It's stunning to me to watch the turnaround. And it's like, I look forward to watching these same journalists who purported to be so outraged about the comic's remarks try to justify this. I really do, because some of us were consistent. Some of us said this was not good. This was not an okay thing, rhetoric for a campaign, and called out even the comedian, and have a perfect line of consistency now that it's the president of the United States calling out half of the country, right?
Sitting president,
and by the way,
too.
here's the thing. The comic, he was doing what comedians do. He was making a joke. At a minimum, you have to give him that. He was making a joke. This isn't a sincerely held feeling by the comic. He was trying to get a laugh out of a group that didn't laugh, by the way. The Trump supporters didn't laugh. Joe Biden wasn't trying to get a laugh line, deliver one. This is his sincere feeling about the country, and it's shared. It's shared by his vice president, and it's shared by the man she would make her vice president.
Yeah, and Tony Ratcliffe doesn't have Tomahawk missiles. Like, Tony Ratcliffe doesn't control the U.S. military, okay? Like, Tony Ratcliffe can't just tell the Department of Justice to go after someone. Joe Biden can.
But I'm not worried about, maybe I'm crazy. I'm not worried about Joe Biden or Kamala Harris unleashing the military on us. I'm really not. I'm not worried about Trump doing that to the other side, and I'm not worried. But I am a little worried about what you would do to stop someone from winning if you think he's Hitler and his supporters are Nazis and garbage. Like, what you just said, like, they deserve this. They brought this on themselves, having Joe Biden run around saying rogue things. True. That's how they see the right half. They deserve the cheat. They deserve to have it stolen. These people can't be trusted with our abortion rights, etc. And the more they ramp up that rhetoric, the less I trust them. The more I start to worry that they actually will cheat to stop Hitler. Why wouldn't, if I thought Hitler was about to be elected, I would cheat. I would cheat. Who wouldn't? So the more they talk like this, the more I worry about Tuesday.
Yeah, and there's another wrinkle to that, is that the reason they're ramping up the Nazi rhetoric, because of course it's all they have left, is that they want Donald Trump dead, and they want to try to spur another lone wolf or two to try to kill Donald Trump or his supporters. So that's 100% happening. Because again, it goes back to that whole thing,
They do
which
want
is
him
we have a
dead.
whole movie. Yeah, of course they do. It's that whole movie, Valkyrie, which is, okay, wow, the hero of the movie was trying to kill Hitler the entire time, acted by Tom Cruise and, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And, we have all these mythologies, and they're all correct, of the last 70 years of what if we could have killed Hitler, right? We could have prevented World War II, we could have all the suffering, and of course that's legitimate. So now they call him Hitler and they say, okay, 6 days left. Let's see if a maniac lone wolf can pop him off. And of course they want him dead. This is not you have comedian after comedian and person after person now interview still using the language, I wish he was dead, I hope he was dead, those supporters are the worst. So they have total contempt for us. They do not want to coexist in a country with us. Let me say that again. The left, not liberals, the left who run the Democrat Party do not want to coexist in a country with us. I actually want to coexist with them. I want to live and let live. You guys go do your wacky thing in Berkeley. I'll live my life in Phoenix. Let's have a nice day. I think that's what used to make America great. They don't believe in that. But the final part of this, though, and you hit it perfectly, Megyn, is they are trying to release the hounds for millions of instances of micro cheating. Not the big stuff. The big stuff is either well underway and hopefully being thwarted. The Mark Zuckerberg money, that's not happening this time. But micro cheating, think about it. It's the guy that's now going to steal his neighbor's mail-in ballot because he knows that it was erroneously sent there and he no longer lives there, and fill it out. It's the guy that's going to just kind of cut in line and maybe see that his Republican neighbor put his ballot in his mailbox and it's sitting there and he's just going to go burn it. They want the micro instances of cheating. That's why they are turning up the temperature right now. They want the most flagrant, the most ferocious and aggressive rank and file liberals to go the extra mile, to bring one for the home team. Because as you say it perfectly, I'll go a step further. If you're running against Hitler, not if you think, but actually running against Hitler, you have a moral obligation to cheat. You have a moral obligation to prevent a madman and a maniac. But Donald Trump is not that. Donald Trump is the opposite. And so they are creating a scenario like 2020. I don't know if it's going to work because it's such a different circumstance. And I think people are so tired of this rhetoric where they're trying to turn up the pressure cooker all the way where maybe another 80,000 people cheating to get another 2-3 votes a person is going to be enough to prevent Trump from being president.
You've seen these videos of, the woman who saw a Trump sign on her neighbor's lawn and comes up and has the gall to knock on the door, demand an explanation, drop a bunch of F-bombs in the face of her neighbor because she's pissed off the person's got Trump signs. The thing over the signs really upsets people when you openly say that you're supporting Trump. Why wouldn't that person cheat? If that person could take that person's ballot,
that's exactly
why wouldn't they? So, I mean, I'm all for the mail-in vote, but maybe drop it in the. You actually can drop it at most polling places yourself,
correct.
but maybe drop it in the actual U.S. Post Office if you've got one of these insane lunatic neighbors. It really is crazy. But back to some of the spin. Okay, so my point in raising what Axios and the AP were writing is that they are putting the lie to Politico's spin. None of them is buying apostrophe. They're not. However, they are quick to try to downplay or inject some grayness around it. So you mentioned the AP quickly bringing up after comics insult of Puerto Rico. You got Axios. If you read their report, they say President Biden handed ammo to gleeful Republicans Tuesday night. The story is that he handed ammo. It's not that he called half the country garbage when he seemed to refer to former President Trump supporters as garbage. This is a good part of his report, though, Alex Thompson, I have to say. He says, asked if they had spoken to the president to ask him what he meant before sending the transcript. He's speaking with the Biden spokesperson. He said, we asked if he had spoken with the president to ask him what he meant before you sent your transcript with your fake apostrophe. And he writes, the Biden spokesperson requested to go off the record. So when they asked him, did you talk to the president about what he meant? First, before you sent out this transcript with the apostrophe, the Biden spokesperson requested to go off the record. Axios declined. Good for them. And the White House did not respond further. How about that? And Then they point out that Biden's comments are the latest example of why Kamala Harris's team has been avoiding campaigning with him. This is a story that we've been meaning to get to for the past few days, but every day there's a new leak about how Biden wants to get out there and Harris's team keeps saying no. They don't want anything to do with him. They shoved him to some, New Hampshire campaign office the other day. He went to do some Pennsylvania event by himself with like 12 people. It was like really sad, actually. They're not using him, and they understand why. When he went to that New Hampshire thing, that's when he said, we've got to lock up Donald Trump. And then he tried to save it by saying, lock him up politically. But, your defenses are down. It's like when you get elderly, when you get dementia, it's almost like when you're drunk and you lose your inhibitions and the truth starts coming out of your mouth. So he is a liability to them, but he's saying all the things we know he believes and she believes. And then the final point to something you raised. Online today, it's becoming a thing. May Musk tweeted it. Riley Gaines tweeted it. A bunch of people have tweeted it, saying, I'm proud to be garbage. I'm garbage. I'd rather be garbage than a Democrat. Like, people are leaning into this, and it's just going to snowball.
Oh, it's the new deplorables. And it's even more so because we're 6 days out from an election. And there, again, this is why it's so risky not to have your last week focused on policy and instead on highly volcanic news cycles. It's very, very risky. And so they went all in on MSG. They're like, okay, early voting numbers aren't good. We don't have the momentum. This is our big break and our opportunity. So they all start talking about it. And then the current president speaks about it very, not just imprecisely, but reveals that he thinks that we're garbage. And now all of a sudden, not only are we back on offense, we're back on offense with like jet fuel. I mean, even more so than we were before the MSG rally. Where now our base is so motivated. And understand this, what is motivating the low propensity voter to go vote for Donald Trump right now? That he believes that his own government or her own government does not care about them. That is the ethos of the entire Trump movement. There's like a lot of different components, make America healthy again, all this stuff. But what is the core, what is the spirit of the Trump movement is that I want my country and my government back because they've been doing stuff that is against our best interest. Let's go take it back. Well, now this plays directly into that accurate sentiment, directly into that. And I will repeat something I said. Democrats deserve this. They have covered for Joe Biden's mental decline his entire presidency. They deserve to lose power with the person that they lied about and then jeopardize the entire national security of our country with him. This is the person that they brought up to the presidency. And in some ways, it's an ironic delight to see him continue to jeopardize their political chances.
Two predictions. One, many, many pictures and people, you'll see many, many pictures on Friday of people dressing up as garbage for Halloween.
Yes, that's correct.
I just found my new costume. I'm going as garbage.
It's just going to go, it's going to light on fire now.
It's going to be everywhere. And number two, if the JD Vance that he sent out this morning doesn't turn into a campaign ad within the next 12 to 24 hours, then I don't understand Team Trump. And I think I do. He tweeted the following: a mother mourning her son who died of a fentanyl overdose is not garbage. A truck driver who can't afford rising diesel prices is not garbage. Yeah, a father who wants to afford groceries is not garbage. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden ought to be ashamed of themselves. That's it right there.
That is, and not only that, I mean, I tweeted amongst many other people, Corey Kapatome was not garbage. The firefighter who put his entire life in front of his family, and they live, and he died, and he was a hero. He's not garbage. But Joe Biden and Kamala Harris think they are. And you mentioned this briefly, Megyn, worthy of repeating. She has not denounced, at the moment of our recording right now, our conversation, denounced or distanced herself from anything that Joe Biden said, period. And so therefore, we have to assume that there is a stated position, a contempt for the American body politic held by both of them.
No, the spinners are just out there trying to convince us that we didn't hear it. Although I will say, even Governor Josh Shapiro was on CNN right after this happened, and he was caught by surprise on this. And listen to what he said in SOT 5.
I had not heard that until now, Caitlin, so I'm kind of giving you my fresh reaction to it. I would never insult the good people of Pennsylvania or any Americans, even if they chose to support a candidate that I didn't support.
That's the governor of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, which has a very large working class population. This is why John Fetterman got elected. John Fetterman's been jumping up and down, warning the Democrats that these people connect very much with Trump. Like, take them seriously, engage with them. And instead, what he gets is, you're garbage. To the point where they have the own Democratic governor, who was almost the running mate, out there saying, whoa, disassociate.
Yeah, I mean, what I heard right there is Josh Shapiro saying, hey, Kamala Harris, this is what you get for not choosing me as your vice president. And so secondly, he's trying to lay the foundation for, he's the most ambitious person besides Gavin Newsom, the Democrat Party, for a 2028 run. But yes, look, I mean, he's exactly right. It's quite a perplexing political strategy, isn't it? Which is 7 days out from an election, call the voters you need most garbage. It's really
Nazis.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know.
Nazis and fascists.
Maybe
and
Doug will dress up as a fascist, and I'll dress up as garbage. That could be a fun.
Yeah,
we got to think outside the box.
I don't know if dressing up as a fascist would go well, but the garbage thing I think is great, and is that again the fascist and the Nazi thing. You don't want to try to appropriate those terms because that's just not good. But definitely, the costume would. Yeah, there's no really way.
It could go south fast.
It would definitely go bad. So, but I will say, dressing up as garbage, I think is hilarious, or at least, in waste management jacket or something like that, which, by the way, I'm not the first person to have this idea. I texted Team Trump this. President Trump, please go to Philadelphia and go work a garbage route for like 10 minutes, okay? Just like on the side of a garbage truck. It's just like, it's not even a question. That's it. It's signed, sealed, delivered.
It'll be a 49 state win akin to what
I don't know about 49.
If he does that.
It would be... It's game over. I mean, it's waiting for you to do it, and just 10 minutes, all right? 10 minutes, put on the jacket. You could still wear your red tie with the cufflinks, get on the side of the garbage truck with Tony the garbage man in Bucks County, and just go do 10 different homes, right? In that like Silver Linings Playbook type Philadelphia neighborhood. Yes. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like super middle class where they have like 100 homes lined up in a mile, and just go do it. Done. Joe Biden thinks we're garbage. Blah, 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 blah. I'm out here taking out the garbage with the beautiful people of Philadelphia. Go Eagles. Thanks so much. And leave the city. And, anyway, I'm not the first one to have that idea.
They're too savvy to miss that opportunity. Okay, now wait. Yeah. I do want to give you some of the spin. We talked a little bit about some of the media. It took CNN about 14 hours to realize the Josh Shapiro message condemning was not the message they wanted. That's not right. Let's instead try to make excuses for it. It didn't happen. Maybe we'll go with the apostrophe. Or maybe we'll go with this old chestnut, courtesy of CNN guest Franklin Leonard, who's the CEO of The Blacklist. SOT 6.
Joe Biden has never been a big arena speaker. He's never been the most fluid speaker. And by the way, as someone who had a stutter growing up, it's very obvious to me that there's an apostrophe at the end of supporters there.
Yeah, let me just accept the most charitable framing of this, which you just gave. Yeah. Why is he sitting in front of a laptop at the exact same moment Kamala Harris is out on his backyard trying to give the closing argument to her campaign? What in the world is he doing?
Scott Jennings on the back end. It was the stutter, Charlie. It was his stutter.
Yeah, it was a little boy from Scranton who couldn't put two sentences together because of his stutter. I mean, the whole thing is just is so repulsive. And again, he's the sitting president of the United States. He is the mentor and the boss of the person trying to get the job. And the media knows it. I mean, here they are. They went all in on this flimsy narrative on that Trump supporters are the worst thing ever. And then they actually then embody the thing. I mean, what does a fascist do? What does a Nazi do? He calls people Untermensches. Let's just be honest, okay? Adolf Hitler justified the extermination of millions and millions of Jews, 8-9 million Jews, by calling them Untermensches, literally subhuman. And if you were to go look at a synonym tree on a thesaurus would be garbage, subhuman, garbage, unhuman, garbage, not human. Okay, well, they are now embodying the very same thing that they accused us of for quite some time.
You've got Kamala Harris. This is sort of the other perfect piece of this. Standing up there at the ellipse. I will say her delivery was better than I expected. She's like learning to modulate her voice better. She's trying to get rid of her horrific vocal fry voice. She can't, but I noticed that she tried. And she delivered this message which sounded great if you knew nothing about Kamala Harris. If you had not heard her calling Donald Trump a fascist on camera with Anderson Cooper days before, not to mention all over her campaign messaging and Hitler and so on, you might actually think maybe she does want to unify. Maybe she actually is open-minded to Donald Trump and his supporters if she were to win. And this is how she sounded as her partner back at the White House was saying what we've been discussing. Sat 9.
America, for too long, we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America.
She's such a fraud, Charlie.
I mean, beyond a fraud, she's a very dangerous person. And I just want to be clear. She must be defeated. They are trying to do this last-ditch unity appeal, and you can hear all the lobbyists on K Street applauding her. And so, of course, she does her closing message in D.C. Of course she does. Obviously, this is this is her constituency, the people that extract all your money and your wealth to make themselves richer and allow them to have infinitely better lives than you. And they have a $6 trillion annual budget. Of course she does her closing message there, obviously. And so, look, if you know nothing about the framing, it's nicely scripted. But again, aren't you the vice president? So we want a new generation of leadership. Shouldn't we get rid of you? And this kind of parlays into something that one of the reasons why I think Donald Trump is so hard to beat this cycle, not that I think he's going to win, but why I think the Democrats are really struggling to defeat him, is that Donald Trump, of course, for the first time since non-consecutive terms of Grover Cleveland, we've never seen anything like this, is that Donald Trump has unique challenger advantages and incumbency advantages. And I haven't heard anyone break it apart like this, which is that he's able to say, look at my amazing record, vote for me, all the things I did, while also challenging and criticizing the person currently in office, which also has a great advantage. And then when they try to attack Trump, he's like, well, no, my record is here, but I'm not in office, you're in office. And so it's almost as if he's immune to any criticism of people's current suffering, understandably because he's not in office, but he also has the advantages of not just being a challenger, but also having a legitimate resume to point to. And so the Democrats don't know how to exactly deal with that. He's both a challenger and an incumbent in this combination. I will say, though, that if Kamala Harris gets power as the presidency, there will be mass imprisonment of political dissidents. There will be homes being raided. And we will enter an incredibly dark chapter in this country.
I, as I say, don't really believe that, but I do believe people will be targeted because we've seen them targeted under Joe Biden. We've seen people praying outside of abortion clinics targeted. We've seen people praying silently around the issue of abortion, too close to abortion clinics, get prosecuted as though they had committed some violent crime. We've seen parents labeled domestic terrorists just for standing up for their children at school board meetings. We've seen 2 of Trump's top aides thrown in jail for contempt of Congress when we've never seen that before for, political players like this. It's like, I don't dismiss it entirely. It's the word mass is what I'm taking issue with. But let me just give you this, because you see her with her sweeping, uplifting message, I'm the Michelle Obama going high version. Meanwhile, Michelle Obama was basically like, the Republicans will kill you. They will kill your women. Go vote Kamala. So she's decided to leave the highbrow message. So Kamala goes out there and says, let's lock arms in unity. And then you get Joe Biden, and then you get the guys who are on that Pod Save America podcast, Obama's guys, running cover for her,
they are
and
so
him.
Sarcastic.
Right. So this guy, John Favreau, tweets out, Joe Biden is not a candidate for president. As if he's just some know nothing. He's as unknown as that comedian, right? He's not running. Hello, he's the sitting president. He's the reason she's vice president and the reason she's the nominee. Kamala Harris is a candidate for president. Tonight, she said if she wins, she'll always listen to Trump supporters and give them a seat at the table. Okay, let me just stop there. That's a lie. That's not what she said. What she said was, I pledge, if elected, to listen to experts, to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make, and to people who disagree with me. Unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. I'll give them a seat at the table. People who disagree with me, she's talking about Liz Cheney. She's talking about Adam Kinzinger, these former Republicans, at least in his case, I think he's former, who are still technically more affiliated with the right, but support her, including her crazy abortion stance, abandoning their previous positions just because they have such severe TDS. It's absurd to take that and say she's going to listen to Trump supporters and give Trump supporters a seat at the table. Hell no. They couldn't even get a seat at the January 6th hearings, Charlie. It's a blatant lie. And then you get Ben Rhodes, also part of this group, Obama's former speechwriter. Joe Biden is not the Democratic nominee. Again, this is all coordinated, as if he's a nothing right now. He's a nobody. Kamala Harris is. Trump can't win a fight between the past and the future because he's a washed-up demagogue who attacks Americans as the enemy within and understands nothing about anyone other than himself. Now, back to the end of the John Favreau tweet. Trump is the candidate for president. Trump said Harris supporters are the enemy from within who he might use the military against. He never said that. He is not saying her supporters are the enemy within. He's made that clear. He talks about people like Adam Schiff by name, who's twice tried to impeach him, whose daughter's trying to convict him. And the military comment, as this audience well knows, was made in the context of what if there's chaos on election day? What would you do to control it and tamp it down to keep order? And Trump said, if I have to use the National Guard or the military, I'm open to that. He's not talking about this, but they have made such a lie out of this, Charlie. They make lies out of what's real, and they make, I mean, like whether it's for or against him. So like this is something that Trump didn't say that they try to make real. Then they take something Joe Biden did say and try to make it false.
Yeah, and that's what the Pod Save America bro gang does. Again, I try not to listen to them. It's like so sarcastic, so smug. It is like perfect central casting for the state of the American Democrat Party, which is I'm smarter than you and just listen to me joke around for the next hour and a half about how right I am. It's just really, really hard to listen to. But yeah, look, I mean, if I was Joe Biden, I mean, you have to wonder how bitter he feels towards this entire thing. And I deep down don't think he wants Kamala Harris to become president. I don't think he wants Trump to win. I don't think he likes Trump at all, actually. I don't believe that. But I think that he really feels slighted. We saw the lip reading, allegedly, of what he said at Ethel Kennedy's funeral with Barack Obama. And understand, the whole argument is that Joe Biden needed to go because he only had one path to the White House, which was that he had to win all 3 Rust Belt states. Now, I'm not ready to make any broad proclamations, Megyn, but based on early voting, polling, sentiment, voter registration, and likelihood of probability of victory, it's the exact same situation that Joe Biden was in back in June. Like the exact same. We're at Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris needs to carry all 3. So it's the same exact situation. And you have to wonder, Joe Biden, you say, wow, you removed me so that you could go back to the exact same situation. And there is an argument that even though Joe Biden was, mentally incapacitated, he was still doing better with white working class voters and Catholics in Pennsylvania than Kamala Harris is right now. And so I if I were to guess, they're going to put Joe Biden completely out to the reservation now. He's not going to do any more public comments. But at this point, he has just delivered a major get out the vote and turnout boost for the Republican side.
It's over for Joe Biden and the Zoom calls. I'm afraid he's going to have to go back to Rehoboth Beach and try to enjoy what's left of the warm weather. All right. Charlie mentions early voting. As you guys know, Charlie's group is hugely responsible for the get out the vote effort in certain states. And he's been working with lots of other groups, but we're going to ask him how that's going. And we'll give you Trump's response to this whole kerfuffle over, half the country being garbage right after this quick break. Charlie stays with me for the full show. Hey guys, don't forget that on election night, we'll be live for you right here at the Megyn Kelly Show. You can find us on SiriusXM Triumph Channel 111, or you can find us at youtube.com/Megyn Kelly. And we will have all of your Megyn Kelly Show favorites with us that evening to cover the results as they finally start rolling in. Don't miss a moment. We start at 8 p.m. unless craziness is happening, in which case we'll go early. And we got you covered all night long. Don't forget, 8 p.m., election night, the Megyn Kelly Show. Can't wait to see you then. Let me ask you a question. Do you think our country's going in the right direction? Are you one of the 20% who thinks so? Or does it feel more like things are falling apart? If you are feeling alarmed, you're not alone. In fact, Americans from all walks of life have taken action to prepare for whatever's coming next. And that could start with having an emergency food supply. Storing food in your home can be valuable, really valuable. Not to mention brings you peace of mind in this crazy time in America, which explains why so many people are preparing. Right now, you can get ready too with a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. It comes with delicious foods like creamy stroganoff, honey wheat bread, and mushroom rice pilaf. The entire kit offers over 2,000 calories every day. This food kit lasts up to 25 years. Who knows what our country will look like then? But you can know you'll be ready for what comes. Go to preparewithmegan.com now to order your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. That's preparewithmegan.com.
Remember Hillary? She said deplorable. And then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable. That didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right? But he doesn't know. You have to please forgive him. Please forgive him, for he not knoweth what he said. These people, it's terrible, terrible. Terrible to say a thing like that, but he really doesn't know. He really, honestly, he doesn't. And I'm convinced that he likes me more than he likes Kamala. Convinced.
Trump with a rather subdued reaction, you could argue, to the latest kerfuffle. Charlie Kirk's back with me of Turning Point USA. His group has done massive get out the vote efforts when it comes to early voting and ballot chasing, which we'll talk about. Just a little bit more from Trump, who tweeted out or posted, "While I am running a campaign of positive solutions to save America, Kamala Harris is running a campaign of hate. She has spent all week comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history." That is 100% true. That is not hyperbole. Now, on top of everything, Joe Biden calls our supporters garbage. You can't lead America if you don't love the American people. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have shown they are both unfit to be president. I'm proud to lead the biggest, broadest, and most important political coalition in American history. We are welcoming historic numbers of Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, and citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. It is my desire to be the president of all the people. Now, she said stuff like that in her speech, Charlie, about how she wants to be president for all the people. But then you look at and how she wants to lock arms, and she's sure she's going to deal with people who disagree with her. The spin is Trump supporters, not what she said. But you actually look at the speech, and she called Trump a petty tyrant. She called Trump a wannabe dictator. She called Trump unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, out for unchecked power. I could go on. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And you know what? Phil Houston, my favorite human lie detector, CIA, 25 years, invented the deception detection program there, always says that and the people know this anecdotally, but like when your head is shaking yes, but your mouth is saying no, there's an incongruity there that immediately strikes the listener as false. It's a tell that you're lying, because doing that is doing like this. You know, where you pat and you rub the belly at the same time, and it's kind of hard to get them both going. Your body doesn't want to do incongruent things, but that's all she did. She said all the nice words. She wants to bring us together. She's going to have Republicans at the table while she calls Trump a petty tyrant and calls him Hitler, or her vice presidential running mate suggests we're all Nazis and so on. Like, just because somebody could write a nice speech for her, does it persuade people? Do people listening in these swing states, Charlie, hear that and say, nicer tone, got the vocal fry slightly under control, I'm going Harris?
Yeah, I don't think so. First of all, I mean, it was during the World Series, so any sensible person wasn't watching Kamala Harris speak last night. But let me just say that, let me tell you her strategy, because the early voting numbers are not looking great for her. The Democrat base is not turning out in big numbers as of this conversation right now. So she has to try to win over a ton of election day high propensity voters, people that are in the suburbs, people that are college educated, that tilt center right or Republican. And that is where her messaging is going. Here's a general rule of politics that if you are trying to persuade in the last week before an election, you're not in a great spot. Notice Donald Trump is not really in the persuasion business right now. He's in the turnout business, saying, reminder, here are the 5 things I want to do. Boom, 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 boom. Go vote, go big, go vote early. Where Kamala Harris, she doesn't have that advantage. She's still trying to chase headlines and persuade people. In order for Kamala Harris to win, which is possible, I don't discount that. I'm not one of those people that say, oh, it's going to be a landslide. I think it's going to be very close. And I think that we need everybody to go vote. But she needs to do, the stars really do need to align for her, though. And it's possible, but it's hard. Number one, there needs to be a late breaking of independence in her direction. Sizable. So we talk about late breakers, right, Megyn? Which is like, okay, people in the middle that have no idea how they're going to vote to election day, which way are they going to tilt? If they tilt 50-50, it's not going to be great for her. She needs to win those like 65-40, 65-35, almost 70-30. So that's number one. Number two, that she needs there to be a quiet pro-abortion vote that nobody is detecting in the polling. Now, I could tell you, I don't think that exists because I have now done well over 20 campus stops, Megyn. And as I do them, well, thousands of kids attend. We had 5,000 University of Georgia. You can usually tell, are there any counter protests? There's like 4 or 5 people maybe. So the energy and the spirit on that topic is there for the base, but I think it really tapers off and plateaus beyond that. She also then needs to have massive female turnout, and she needs to win like 70% of the female vote in battleground states. That is going to be very difficult for her, but it's possible. And she needs people to basically lie to their husbands, which they are promoting, by the way, which I find that entire advertising campaign so repulsive. It is so disastrous. It is just like
I'll show it in a minute.
It is the embodiment of the downfall of the American family. I think it's so gross. I think it's so just nauseating where this wife is you'll show it, wearing the American hat. She's coming in with her sweet husband who probably works his tail off to make sure that she can go, and have a nice life and provides for the family. And then she lies to him saying, oh yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. And then she votes for Kamala Harris as her little secret in the voting booth. Kamala Harris and her team believe that there will be millions of women that undermine their husbands. And do so in a way that it's not detectable in the polling. So that's something they're counting on. And if that's correct, that speaks for much deeper moral decay of the country, Megyn, than anything that politics could ever solve, right?
But should we really be surprised? Kamala Harris is married to a man who has been credibly accused, to use the left's favorite term, as a woman beater. Okay, that's who she married. And she won't comment on it. His denial was a non-denial denial. The report is untrue. And then went on to offer character evidence of how he would never strike a woman. The woman went on the record anonymously, but with a great detail with the Daily Mail about what happened to her when he wailed her across the face for no reason. They weren't even fighting. This is a year before he started up with Kamala. This is an ancient history. So then, by Doug Emhoff's own account, when Kamala Harris was elevated to the position of nominee the day Joe Biden dropped out, she couldn't find Emhoff. He was in a spin class, whatever. And when she finally got him on the phone, her first response was, "Where the F were you?" Something I have literally never uttered to Doug in the 18 years we've been together. I don't speak to my husband, who I love and adore, like that, nor does he speak to me like that. We have a respectful, loving relationship. And so it doesn't surprise me that she and her team would come up with, let's do something that talks about dishonesty and division in a marriage where someone betrays the other. And that's totally normal. That they don't have the kind of marriage where they can just be honest about their political differences. The wife must lie to her husband, the father of her children, in order to support me, Kamala Harris.
It is really, it's demented. And just to be clear, they are promoting, I don't want to say infidelity because that's not fair to say, but it's a form of, dishonesty. A form of marital that's exactly right. There's a form of marital dishonesty. So Kamala Harris's path to the White House is marital subversion. That's a better way to say it. Is that if Kamala Harris were to win, there would be widespread marital subversion. I want everyone to understand that. if you're on the fence about voting, Kamala Harris wants to get power so badly. She wants to turn wives against husbands and think that's like cool and does a television advertisement against it.
Let's watch
They're
it. Let's watch
bragging
it.
about this. Yes, please.
Stand by.
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose.
They're at a polling station.
You can vote any way you want.
She's looking at Trump
and no
versus
one
Harris.
will ever know.
The two women are looking at each other.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey.
Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth.
Oh my God. And then not for, just for good measure, they make the male Trump supporter look like a complete doofus.
Of course, obviously. And it's just, this is the state of the Democrat Party, which is like, oh yeah, your husband is dumb and an imbecile. Doesn't matter if he works his tail off to make sure the mortgage is paid and the bills are paid and is a good father to the kids. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, subvert, because that matters more. And so they think that's going to happen at scale. They've said that, not as explicitly as that advertisement, but Jen O'Malley Dillon, or whatever her name is, the rocket scientist running her campaign, has said, we think there's a quiet suburban woman vote of people that will not be detected in the data versus the household, is what they say. They're much more polite, as the campaign. And then finally, they believe that this is the more unusual one, which is just going to be really hard to believe. Again, I'm not discounting it because anything is possible with this stuff, but they're counting on Democrats changing their voting habits and showing up big on Election Day. That would be interesting, honestly. That would be quite remarkable. We don't see any data with that because right now the early voting numbers are favoring Republicans in many of the swing states. In fact, Republicans and Democrats are almost even in early voting nationally. So Kamala Harris needs a lot of those things to kind of align. She's underwater on every issue except abortion. She's underwater on capacity to lead and serve, underwater even on likability and favorability. And so what is her closing message? Call the opposition fascists and Nazis. I will say for people in the middle, moderates, they tell pollsters they are repulsed with that kind of language and that kind of rhetoric, which again, they used to be, oh, Donald Trump is raising the rhetoric. By the way, you're a bunch of Nazis. Moderate swing voters do not like that at all. And so I can't imagine that is going to be persuasive. But
no, Charlie, there's
tell.
backup for that. Not only did we hear a report earlier this week from Dan Turrentine, who's on two-way with Halperin, that the messaging had gone out in the swing states to the lower ticket politicians, like those running for U.S. Senate, lower than president. You don't have to follow that. You don't have to do what she's doing. And there's some data to suggest you shouldn't do what she's doing. But just this morning on the Daily, they reported the same, that their testing in the Democrat circles is showing that's not working. That the people don't like it. It's not a good closing message, which is why they think she was going to try. They taped it before last night's speech to be more uplifting in her speech yesterday. But I mean, how do you spend weeks saying they're Nazis, they're fascists, they're Hitler, and then say rainbows, unicorns, yay, follow me?
No, but
Taste
hold on.
the
This is
rainbow.
very important. Let's play this out. This is how sick and dishonest. Okay, so Kamala, you're going to allow a Nazi a seat at the table to help you decide policy? Do you actually believe the crap you're spewing? Are you going to go bring a bunch of Nazis and unite the country with them? No, which one is it, Kamala? That you want an uplifting future or that half the country are worthy of extermination? Like, I love when they say, I'm going to go, I'm going to put a Trump supporter in my cabinet. Wow. Which one? Goebbels? Reichman? You call all of us as the worst people on the history of the planet. And then all of a sudden you want to bridge together the super PAC that Kamala Harris that super PAC that is outside of her campaign
supporting
has basically said, they said in the New York Times, stop doing this. The data is bad. Do not do this. And so, Megyn, what I think is happening, and I don't have any evidence of this, and I hope I'm correct, is that I think it's a bunch of young zealots that are in the Kamala Harris campaign that are high in their own supply, that are like, just call them what we all know what they are. Give us the red meat that we deserve. And they're trying to also boost Democrat turnout because their Democrat turnout is not there like it was in 2020 proportionally. So they have simultaneous problems going right now. And again, I think it's a dark chapter of American history that we have to enter, and we have to even be talking about this. Donald Trump gets called all the worst names imaginable. I do not know any instance where Donald Trump called half the country garbage or trash. Instead, he tries to win over their vote. He says, come on and support me, and our movement is better, and here's
Nor
why.
Nor has he referred to all Kamala supporters or the left as the enemy from within. That's not how he's using that term. He's using that to describe the people who stole his first term from him by the Russia hoax and the BS impeachment.
And also shot him.
The constant undermining. And the people who shot him, the people who have made it their mission to try to get him impeached or indicted and unleash lawfare against it. Every sane person gets that. But it's been amazing how the media has just refused entirely to even try to stay factual on what he actually said. And they're the ones, too, who want to hear the fascist lines. I mean, Mika Brzezinski was on The View the other day, almost crying about what a fascist Donald Trump was. I was saying this to my friend Paul Murray, who's in Australia on Sky News. Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough did more than anybody to get Donald Trump elected the first time back in 2016. They licked the man's boots. It was truly almost R-rated what happened on that show every morning with Donald Trump, what the three of them were doing. They were in a threesome with Donald Trump. And then suddenly now she wants this, she's like, oh my God, I was in a threesome with Hitler. I had no idea. Like, it's just so obvious and it's transparent. And I do think it's one of the reasons why it isn't working. But for me, it all comes back to, and we'll drop this in later for the YouTube audience. There was that shot behind the scenes of the Karine Jean-Pierre staff, the comm staff at the White House. And it was your worst nightmare of like all DEI hires. Like these young women who looked like they were about 14, with all due respect to 14-year-old women. They should not be deciding White House messaging. Every, racial group, whatever. It was very clear they were looking for a panoply of colors and sexes and blah, blah, blah. And there's zero chance these people had enough life experience to actually be running White House comms and coming up with messaging on the most serious issues of our time. And I guarantee you, those are the people who've transferred over to her, or her team looks exactly like that.
100%.
And they're deciding Hitler's the way to go. Fashion's the way. Where they don't understand these middle Americans who are perhaps a little bit more mature, have had some life experience, have lived through a bunch of elections where these kinds of terms get thrown around about Republicans only, and they don't believe this crap.
That's right. And I think the revolutionaries that are within Kamala's campaign have taken over the messaging. And again, if I end up being wrong and Kamala Harris wins this election a week from today, and I'll say, wow, I guess that's the way you get power in this country. You just declare war on the other half you don't like. It would be a first in American history, right? I mean, that you can assume power by just saying the other half of the country is the worst thing imaginable. But I just, my instinct and my gut, and I'm not alone, a lot of other Democrats are saying it. And to the Young Turks' credit, again, I think at times they're a little bit clownish, and they certainly attack me all the time on YouTube. However, I get along with Anna Kasparian and Cenk Unger, or whatever his name is. And they've been tweeting out, being like, guys, this is how you lose an election. I mean, to their credit, they've been incredibly intellectually honest on Twitter, saying, what are you doing, guys? Like, they're like, this is the stupidest thing that you could possibly be doing 7 days out from an election for no other reason, and this is their words, that you're just giving more motivation for Republicans like myself to go get more family members to go vote. You're just giving more ammunition for the base of the party to work harder, because we think it is a survival election now.
And because you can see these people hate me. They don't just disagree with me.
Yes.
They hate me. And so it's just like watching CNN, the same way you feel. She just responded. Kamala Harris just weighed in on Garbage Gate. Let's take a listen.
Have you spoken to President Biden since his comment last night about garbage?
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear, I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not. That is my responsibility, and that's the kind of work that I've done my entire career, and I take it very seriously.
Have you spoken to him about it? Takes it very seriously. Take it up with your vice president.
Yeah, and also, again, so the correct follow-up question is, well, Kamala Harris, you called them fascists, and now you say that you want to unit. Which one is it, actually? You got to choose. Because on Sunday, everyone was fascist. And now that your president calls everyone garbage, it's like, I don't know, I'm okay with people that disagree with me. So which one is it exactly, Kamala Harris?
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about where we are in this election right now, because people are voting. The election's underway. I didn't know this, but apparently Nevada, historically, like there's almost no day of voting.
Yes, I have
it all
all the
happens
numbers
in the
here.
lead up.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I want to talk about it. I'm going to start with this. Steve Bannon is, thank goodness, out of prison and back at the helm of his show. He mentioned you and Elon the other day and also had a warning for Team Trump. Listen to South 23.
My fear is that some people, I think, are trying to lean on the shovel and say, look at the polls, these polls, and Trump always under polls, and he does this, so Trump's up 3, 4, 5. Hey, maybe that's the case, but that's theoretical right now. Reality is the electorate we bring on November 5th. Look, Elon Musk is one of the smartest guys in the world, right? If not the smartest practical engineer in the world. Charlie Kirk is incredibly smart. Look where they've put their efforts over the last couple of months. It is flat out, get out the vote. And we have to put in superhuman efforts to support the Elon Musk of the world, to support the Charlie Kirks of the world, to support the other organizations that are out there doing this.
I'm sure you're too modest to agree with how smart you are, but you are. But do you agree with every word he's spoken there?
Well, I first of all, I'm so glad Steve's out of jail, and it's just so unjust what happened to him, so unjust, and that's worthy of another show. Yes, so first and foremost, I don't like cockiness. I got so upset the other day. I sent out a tweet, it went super viral, of this person that was texting me for tickets to the inauguration. I was like, what the heck? Inauguration? I was like, lose my number, and a lot of other 4-letter words. And then somebody says, I need to get on the phone with you right now. It was one of our donors, nice person. It's urgent. I was like, wow, okay. I mean, it's like someone in the hospital. Like, do you need a favor? Like, what can I do? He's like, no, I want to talk to you about me joining the administration. I was like, well, what administration are you talking about? You want to join the administration? You mean Biden administration? I said, there is no administration. And he's like, oh, I think Trump's going to win. I said, you are a waste of rations right now, respectfully. I said, I don't want to hear about transition. I don't want to hear about policy. I care about votes and ballots and boxes for the next 6 days. That's all I care about. We have to play as if we are down. I don't care about vibes. I don't care about polls. I certainly don't care about betting markets, and I don't care about crowd sizes. I care about, are you able to get new voters into the system coming Tuesday? Now, the numbers are pretty remarkable, Megyn, and we have at Turning Point Action, I will give the credit to the organization. We have worked our tail off to try to change the culture of early voting. You know this, Megyn. We've come on this program a couple times, and we've talked about this, which is to try to vote early, expand the voting base, engage in voting month, and ballot chase. So it's like a rule that we lose mail-in early voting in Nevada. Well, as of right now, we are 42,000. Republicans are winning early voting in Nevada by 42,000 votes. And that is just unheard of. In North Carolina, in 2020, at this point in time, Democrats had about 1.4 million mail-in votes, Republicans 1.1 million. As of right now, 2024, Republicans 1.148 million, Democrats 1.16 million, without a lot of Republicans on day of. So Democrats are down nearly 300,000 mail-in votes in the state of North Carolina, a state, by the way, that Donald Trump carried by nearly 100,000 votes. Arizona. So in Arizona, at this time, back in 2020, Democrats were beating Republicans by about 100,000 early votes. Right now, Republicans are up 127,000 votes in early voting. Now, some people might say, but Charlie, you're just transferring election day votes and you're cannibalizing. There is a little bit of that, Megyn, but it's actually far less than people realize. This is largely driven by low propensity voters, first-time voters, and people that otherwise would not vote. And even if it is some cannibalization, at least they voted. We don't have to worry about them showing up on election day. It makes the line shorter. It makes it easier for us to know who to target as we get closer. And so I don't want to speak for the Democrats. Maybe one will come on your show. But these early vote numbers are very, very good for Republicans. In fact, nationally, this is what's amazing. Democrats only have a 1 million vote advantage in early voting across the country nationally. 1 million vote advantage. And as you know, as we get closer to Election Day, the electorate gets redder and redder.
Okay, can you help me make sense of John Ralston's latest post? So he's like the guru on Nevada and tweets a lot of very loving things about Kamala Harris, so I don't think he's a nonpartisan guy, but seems to actually understand the numbers in Nevada. And he says kind of what you just said. He's been doing these updates every day, and they all seem to be going the GOP's way. He says, bottom line, still not enough Clark mail ballots. Clark County is Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
So he says, still not enough Clark mail ballots to offset GOP in-person votes and rural tidal wave. Because people are voting in person there too. GOP statewide lead now, exactly what you said, 42,800 or 5.6%. Then he says the Clark GOP in-person win today, I think this is yesterday, was the lowest it's been so far, only 9 points. But only 9,000 Clark mail ballots counted, which helped Dems gain 2,200, more than offset by Clark in person. I don't understand that. He goes on to say there are more Clark in-person votes, 274,000, than Clark mail-in ballots, 260,000. It seems impossible that will last. And those are rural margins, which he's got an exclamation point after. This is all Greek to me. Then he writes, we are closing in on 60% of the vote being in. 60%, and maybe already there. If Dems are not doing well with the 200,000 independents who have voted and the 200,000 more likely to vote, and if the low volume of Clark ballots does not change in the next week, he says it seemingly has to because we're only at 57% of what we had in 2020, the Dems will lose Nevada for the first time in 20 years. Okay, can you put any meat on that for me?
So I got most of that. First of all, what he's saying is that turnout is low. That's the first thing, is that Democrats are not showing up at the rate of Republicans. The fact that in-person early voting is outpacing mail is remarkable. I mean, that's like unheard of. So think about it. In-person early voting is like mini election day every day up until the election. So you have to drive in a car, go vote. Those people tend to be far more Republican than Democrat, far more, like 70% to 30%. Mail tends to be very Democrat. What he's getting at, though, is that there is this missing gap of probably hundreds of thousands of Democrats that have received ballots that are just not turning them in. So that is a result of a couple things. Probably because there is lower Democrat enthusiasm for Kamala than anyone would realize. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. All the experts said I was wrong. I said, guys, I'm on these campuses. I'm telling you, there is not the uprising for this. That I'm telling you, it is not there. There is no energy for Kamala on campuses. People say, oh, no, look. I said, no, I'm telling you, there's going to be a drop-off here, and I don't know how significant. Number one. Excuse me. Number two, that the Democrat culinary machine might be weakening. That Donald Trump saying no tax on tips and Donald Trump saying that no tax on overtime, he might be breaking the back of Harry Reid's machine. And I don't want to say that yet, but remember, Harry Reid built this very complex, incredibly efficient culinary union machine that would go gather ballots and dump them into the system. And Donald Trump might be breaking that just through being the representative of the muscular class. What he is saying, though, what Ralston is saying, again, I'm not a Nevada expert, but I know enough to be dangerous, is that as we get closer to the election, the rurals have not roared yet. And the rurals go very, very red. And so typically, here's what happens. Typically, is that Democrats build their own firewall in Clark County, usually around, if it's a competitive race, 30 to 40,000 ballots in their direction. And then Republicans show up huge in the rurals, in Elko and in the rural part of the rural parts of the states. Washoe is usually a break even, which is right near Reno, Nevada, but it's been tilting right in recent years as more and more Californians flee California for better taxes, a better way of life. And then you just try to lose by enough on Clark County to offset it to maybe win by 10,000 votes. What we now see is Republicans leading 42,000 statewide. This is a brave new world, Megyn. We've never seen this. So Democrats need to try to chip into that Republican firewall, if not make it even, and they are running out of time. And so what Ralston is saying, though, is he's like, I think the Democrats are going to start dumping a lot of ballots. I'm not saying fraudulently, just that there's a lot of ballots out there. But there's a lot. The time is running thin. Now, the other thing is that the Jen O'Malley Dillon and the Democrats are saying, oh, no, we don't have a Nevada problem. The independents are for us significantly. I was just in Nevada, Megyn. I think that's a bunch of rubbish. I think it's going to be a wash. I spent a lot of time with people that were taxi drivers, Uber drivers, the people that make Vegas work. And understand, Trump does well in Vegas because that is like the muscular class capital of the West. We think of it for all the, let's say lower parts of humanity. But to make that city work, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of service workers and chefs and linesmen and janitors and valet. I mean, that's really why that city works. And those people are tilting Trump, and they typically are registered Democrats or independents and unlikely to be Republicans. So all that to say, Megyn, the Democrats are in a panic mode in Nevada. And if the media had any honesty, they'd be covering this nationally. And the reason they're not, because they think it's going to have ripple effects in other states. But we are in a favorable position in Nevada, the likes of which we couldn't imagine. We have 30 full-time people on the ground in Nevada every single day, legally harvesting votes and legally chasing votes every single day.
Okay, let's talk about North Carolina, because there was a remarkable report yesterday via the Carolina Journal that Kamala Harris has pulled her ads out of North Carolina. According to the ad tracking firm Ad Impact, the Harris-Walz presidential campaign has changed much of its remaining ad spending in North Carolina in the last week of the election, pulling millions of dollars worth of ads from the major North Carolina media markets. Let's see. There was an October 29th ex-post election 2024. Yesterday, the Kamala Harris campaign placed new North Carolina politics ads reservations totaling $2.7 million for the final week of the election. This morning, the campaign is cutting from those North Carolina reservations. So far today, we've seen over $2 million removed from the North Carolina markets. Trump campaign's Chris LaCivita posts Kamala Harris is giving up on North Carolina, pulling money out, maybe to drop in Virginia to try and stop the slide. And then the Carolina Journal goes on to say, North Carolina is almost 2 weeks into early voting and seeing significant upticks in turnout among registered Republicans and a drop among registered Democrats. More than 3 million votes have already been cast in the election. And comparing turnout to this point in 2020, elections expert Dr. Andy Jackson of the Civitas Center for Public Integrity reports that Democrats' turnout is down by more than 340,000 voters. Republican turnout is up by 9,000. So let's do North Carolina.
Yeah, and so North Carolina, they've spent a ton of money here. That's where I am right now, actually. Do an event here in North Carolina. I have another event tomorrow with the great J.D. Vance. And so the Democrats have been betting really big. And here's the story of Georgia and North Carolina, is they need as good black turnout as they got in 2020 to even have a chance. That's just number one. And they are nowhere near it, like nowhere near it. Black Americans are staying at home, and it is a double whammy, Megyn. Not only are they staying at home, the ones that are voting, they are losing about 1 out of 4 of every black man. And that alone throws off their models, but they're not even showing up in as big numbers. So black Americans are staying at home, and the ones that are voting, they're losing 1 out of 4 of black men. Black women still remain incredibly loyal to the Democrat Party, which is a tragedy, but that's an issue for another time. So, excuse me, in North Carolina, North Carolina is a very interesting state. It's incredibly conservative and incredibly rural in the western part that got slammed by the hurricane and all the flooding, but it has become more and more northeastern as the research triangle, which is Winston-Salem and Raleigh and Durham, have continued to grow and to gentrify and to become more and more like a mini version of Greenwich, Connecticut down in the mountains. So it's been a battleground state for a couple of years now. Donald Trump looks really, really good on the ground here. The fact that Democrats aren't showing up is basically demoralizing. They needed record turnout to even have a chance. And remember, they had record turnout in 2020, and Donald Trump still carried the state by 100,000 votes.
Wow. I mean, those are two big ones. Obviously, the big Megillah is Pennsylvania. There was a weird poll out of Michigan that showed Harris up 5, but there have been several others that showed Trump up or the race tied. We're going to take up Michigan and the other swings and how Charlie thinks the get out the vote effort is going globally, in a more sort of universal scale right after this quick break. Charlie stays with me. 4 years of crushing interest rates, runaway inflation, and reckless government spending. And who's paying the price? You are. You might have bills stacking up, debt collectors on your back, and you might barely be able to keep food on the table. Done with Debt can be a way out. They have developed new, aggressive strategies designed to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy or loans. Done with Debt stands between you and your bill collectors. They can go head-to-head with these guys, getting balances reduced, interest rates slashed, and penalties stopped. They can create a plan to end your debt fast and put more money in your pocket every month. And right now, Done with Debt is accepting new clients. But you do need to act fast because some credit relief programs expire. Before you even make another payment, consider a visit to donewithdebt.com or just call 1-888-322-1054 right now. 1-888-322-1054. Speak with one of their debt relief strategists for free. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. If you're feeling tired of the same old coffee from the big mega corporations pushing their woke agendas, listen up. It's time to take a stand and to support a brand that truly embodies American values, Blackout Coffee. They stand with hardworking Americans who believe in family, faith, and freedom. And they roast some of the most incredible coffee you will ever taste using only premium grade beans, roasted and shipped to you within 48 hours. And for the cold brew fans, Blackout Coffee is excited to announce the launch of their 2 new ready-to-drink cold brew coffee latte options. Don't settle for less. Make the switch to Blackout Coffee. Head over to blackoutcoffee.com/MK or use the code MK for 20% off your first order. That's blackoutcoffee.com/MK. The code is MK. Join the movement. Taste the difference. Remember, with every sip, you are supporting a brand that stands for America. Be awake, not woke. Charlie, this just breaking at the U.S. Supreme Court. Very good news out of Virginia. Governor Glenn Youngkin, who's a star, decided to purge illegal aliens off of the voter rolls like the nutcase that he is. Non-citizens are not allowed to vote. They are not allowed to vote, period. And so he said, let's get them off of the voter rolls because in error, that in some way they were registered when they, registered to when they try to get a driver's license, whatever they were trying to do. And the Department of Justice, run by Joe Biden, tried to stop him. They went in there and sued, saying, this must stop. This purge of these non-citizens off of your voter rolls must stop. We're too close to the election. And they won at the federal district court, the Biden administration. They won at the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the U.S. Supreme Court just sided with Youngkin, ruling that Virginia is entitled to remove non-citizen aliens from its voter rolls. It seems like a no-brainer, but if you want those voters, they're important to your electoral chances. You go in there like Harris Biden did and contest it. And listen to this, just as, of course, the liberals dissented, the 3 liberal justices. Listen to this. The MSNBC banner on this news. Breaking. SCOTUS lets Virginia resume voter registration purge. Nothing about the fact that they're illegals.
No, that they shouldn't be in the country at all. So I love this, and I have to continue to give credit where credit is due. Michael Anton, who's a professor at the Great Hillsdale College and served with Trump, he has this thing called it is something parallax, and what it is that it's not happening, but it's good that it is. It's this incredibly it's beautiful. So think about the illegal voting. Megyn, there are no illegals on the voter rolls, but it's good that they're on the voter rolls. Wait, hold on. Remember they told us for months that there were no illegals on, there's no illegals voting. It's not happening. It's all conspiracy theory, but it's good that it is. You better leave them on the voting rolls. And right. you look at this is a parallax. And so it's, of course it's good. It's not that many voters. Thankfully, it's only 1,500 voters and who knows how many of them actually voted, but it is symbolically important now. And I hope every state is watching. The Supreme Court has now set a precedent that you are allowed to remove non-citizens from your voting rolls. So I hope Brian Kemp and I hope all these other governors, Ron DeSantis, you guys now have a mandate from the Supreme Court to go remove. Again, I want everyone to be clear. These are not just non-citizens. These are people that should not be in the country, okay? These are people that should not be on the voter rolls. They should not be here whatsoever, and they need to be removed completely.
They certainly shouldn't be determining who our next president is. To your point, here's Wajahat Ali, that CNN contributor, or at least he was, who was on the infamous Don Lemon clip where he's like, those voters, them with their maps and their math, making fun of all middle Americans like they're so stupid, they're just too dumb to decide who should vote. He tweets out in defense of Biden and his garbage comment last night. Glad he gave the context, which was clear to me. But I'm also fine with Democrats calling racists who support Trump's hate garbage. They call the rest of us deep state, the enemy from within, rapists, criminals, invaders, etc. They can dish it out, but they can never take it. It's exactly what you just said. Like, he didn't really say it. He gave the context, which explains it.
But it's good that he did.
But it's good. But let's face it, he was right. the mistaken words were right. Okay, let's keep going. So Michigan, there's this Susquehanna poll that had Trump down, Harris up 5. Yeah. And our buddies over at Real Clear Politics were saying we haven't seen a poll showing it that wide in Michigan for some time. There are others showing it much tighter than that. They only polled 400 voters, and the margin of error is basically 5.
Was it registered voters or likely voters? I don't know. Is it RV or LV?
I don't have that.
And let me tell the audience
it's LV. It's LV. It's likely voters.
That's more accurate then. So registered voters is that you're just calling people on the voting rolls. Likely voters are people that actually have the intent to vote. Now, I will say you try to merge the two in a Trump election because Trump tends to pull more from a registered voter pool of lower likely, low propensity voters. But look, it could be an outlier, or I don't think it's true. Michigan is very, very hard to determine. What we are seeing, though, and this is legit, this is what's happening in Detroit, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. Black voters are not turning out in big numbers right now. It's happening in every major black city. Therefore, they have to do better the Democrats have to do better in the rurals, they have to do better in small towns, and they have to do better in the suburbs. So Michigan, I'm not going to make any proclamations there or predictions. It's still too early. We're still processing a lot of the data. It's a very, very crooked state on how they do elections there. Very, very crooked. But as it stands right now, there's a surge. And let me tell you what's happening in Michigan. Donald Trump is doing very well with people in the auto industry because of his pledge to get rid of the electric vehicle mandate. And do not underestimate the power of how Donald Trump is going to win the Arab Muslim vote. Let me say that again. Mm-hmm. There's polling that suggests this. You go on the ground there. I was just meeting with some Arab Muslim leaders recently. They are so upset with Kamala Harris. And just culturally, they have a tough time voting for a woman. I'm not on that page as they are, but I'm just giving you the, kind of the journalistic analysis. You talk to rank and file in the Muslim community. They do not believe that women should serve in political leadership largely. So that is something that they have to overcome. That's hard as it is. And thirdly, and I think it's really important to mention, is that in Michigan, there are sizable college campuses, and they are not doing as well at Ann Arbor or East Lansing. They're just not. The two major university campuses, young men are the most conservative they've been in 50 years. We've been organizing on these campuses. We've been getting these young people out to vote, and we're going to lose by less on a lot of these campuses and try to keep Kamala Harris under 20 points. If she's under a 20-point margin with younger voters, there's almost no path for her to become president.
Okay, so what are you, and just FYI, Politico did a pair of articles saying that the suburbs, that's the whole deal for her, pointing out the latest Wall Street Journal poll found Harris leading among suburban voters by 7 percentage points. A Reuters Ipsos analysis showed the vice president winning suburban households by 6 points. So for sure, they are looking at the suburbs very, very hard. And they also had a piece out yesterday saying across battlegrounds, there's a 10-point gender gap in the early voting so far. Women account for roughly 55% of the early vote. Men just around 45%, according to a Politico analysis of early vote data in several key states. The implications for next week's election results are unclear. Among registered Republicans, women are voting early more than men, too. So that's, one would presume that those people would be voting for Trump, but you never know, given his problems with women. So how do we factor that in? 10-point gender gap in favor of women. However, look what we just discussed about what's happening in Nevada and what's happening in North Carolina. Just because there's a gender gap doesn't mean we can assume all the women are going for Kamala. There are a lot of Republican women who are going to vote Trump.
For sure. So this is Kamala's best hope, is that this gap is continuing. Now, but let me try to sober up the Kamala people out there. Number one, women do vote earlier than men. Just the same reason why women in class turn their homework on time before men. Men tend to be a little bit let's just say later to the party on such things. It's just true. Honestly, any teacher will tell you that the women in the class are far more dutiful and responsible with those sorts of things. Number two, that gap will close. The electorate will become redder and more masculine as we get closer to election day. Number three, though, is that it's not predominantly younger women. As we see this in the data in Arizona, at least, it's a lot of older women, which tend to be far more Republican than Democrat, which is very important. But in order for Kamala to win, that disparity needs to hold. That kind of margin of the battle of the sexes, women need to do far better with turnout and far better with support. And don't take my word for it. When Kamala Harris was getting a beer with Gretchen Whitmer caught on a hot mic, she's like, we got to do better with men. We have to do better with men. And you wonder why men are rejecting you? Men want to be part of a political movement that does not hate their existence. They want to be part of something that does not believe that they are a problem simply for breathing. And so, look, if men will rise up in the next 6 days, Donald Trump is going to win. It's that simple. If men and women will vote at the same level, they probably won't. Usually women vote 4 or 5 points more than men if that gap can be closed. However, that is Kamala Harris's big play. Run up the score in the suburbs if you can, because right now that urban corridor is not manifesting. They're used to that kind of very heavy, very significant black population and inner city vote that is not turning out. So they have to do well with the suburbs and hope that there is a surge of female girl power that will put Kamala Harris in the White House.
Okay, what about Pennsylvania? Because there's a report about 10 days ago about how there was Democrat infighting there. They were blaming some of the get out the vote, poor returns or poor efforts on one young woman who is supposed to be running the effort. But the polls show Pennsylvania is still tight. I mean, it's not like Donald Trump is running away with it there. So what do you know about Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so these numbers are going to be a little outdated, but they're approximations. So typically, here's how it works. In Pennsylvania, early voting is almost only embraced by Democrats. Traditionally in Pennsylvania, it's of all the swing states, the state that just resists early voting the most, it's Pennsylvania. They are a same-day, election day culture. You ask anybody in Pennsylvania, they say, we go and vote on election day, and the Democrats have embraced mail-in voting. So in 2020, when Donald Trump fell 80,000 votes short, the Democrats built what is called a blue firewall. In 2020, they built a 1.1 million vote blue firewall. So that is all early votes leading up until Election Day. Okay, so they had a 1.1 built-in blue firewall. The firewall, as of today, is about 384,000 votes. Again, that could be off because these numbers are constantly changing as votes are being dumped. So it's basically a 700,000 vote decrease of the blue firewall. So Donald Trump, therefore, has to overcome 700,000 less votes on Election Day than he did in 2020. That is very doable. That is very achievable, obviously. So Democrats are now in a place where they only built an advantage that is 384,000 votes. Now, Pennsylvania counts their votes differently than Arizona. They don't pre-canvass. So on election night, we're actually going to know really well Donald Trump's chances because all the election day votes get counted first. And then, as you know, it takes some days to count the mail-in votes in Pennsylvania, which is going to be this population that favors Democrats by about 384,000 votes. So if Donald, again, I haven't done the exact math, but here's the essence of it. If Pennsylvania has massive and record election day turnout, that is awesome news for Donald Trump. It's that simple. If Pennsylvania just roars and has unbelievable turnout, especially in places like Allentown and, of course, Butler and Erie and in the rurals and the surrounding areas of Lancaster and in Bucks County. And I think Donald Trump, I'm going to call it right now, I think Donald Trump might win Scranton. I know that is, which I believe is, it's another fun word. It's like Susquehanna or something, or county, not that, but it's something else. It's Lackawanna County or something. I think he might actually win that county. So Pennsylvania is in a far worse position for the Democrats this cycle than it was in 2020. Okay. And Donald Trump only fell 80,000 votes short back then.
So parting thoughts on where this race stands right now.
It's a 50-50 shot for those of us that want Donald Trump. There's advantages for Trump, advantages for Kamala. Now's not the time to be cocky. I see a lot of things going in Trump's favor. I see some things going in Kamala's favor. Everyone in your audience, if you agree with what I've said and what we're talking about here, you need to go vote and get your friends to do the same. Early voting is the way, and we got 6 days left. It's a big push, and it's a coin flip of who's going to win.
Wow. To steal a line from Sean Hannity, Charlie Kirk, you're a great American. Thank you so much for all you do.
God bless. Thank you.
Wow. What a guy. We're very lucky to have him. We are back tomorrow morning with a bonus episode featuring an exclusive interview with a guest who was just banned from CNN. Did you see this exchange where he got booted off of the air live? Like they yanked him from the segment. We'll find out what happened. What a week we're about to have, you guys. Stay tuned. Buckle up.